Kia ora tātou. We're about to start. Before we start, I want to kaha tukuna i te rako ki Eruini. E hoa mau tā tātou karakia e taki i tata nei. Tēnā koe kara.
Morena i te whare. Tēnei te ara tua, tēnei te ara tai, kia whakaritere anuku, kia whakaritere rangi, nau mai te rapunga, nau mai ngā tohu. Ko ngā tohu ka kite, ko ngā kitenga ka tohu, tohu a te whāinga, tohu a te whiwhinga, tohu a te rawenga, tēnei te waka ka tere, ki te whaiao, ki te ao mārama, haumi e, hui e, tāiki e.
Kei te kōtihiti o ngā maunga au e patere ngā mihi ki a koe a e tai, Eruini. Nau hono i a tātou mai te rangi ki te whenua ki te rangi. O tātou nei te kiko o te tangata, o hono ki te kaupapa i tātou nei, tēnā rā koe me tō rahi. Te noa ana ngā tai o mihi, a ki te hunga ko tātou mai, a ki tā tātou te renga o Practice Foundations, rua tukau maono. Te tuatahi o matiti rauangina, tēnā rā koutou katoa ko tātou mai. Welcome back to our 2026 season of Practice Foundation. It's such a pleasant morning. The feels of the weather changing here in the far north, unknown for those in other places, but for those who felt the cold snap this morning, well done for turning up to mahi today. And everyone, but most importantly, thank you for connecting into our first session for this year. I'm your host, Riri Motu, hails from the far north, Te Kōrero, on behalf of Healthy Families and Practice Foundations. We have our team from Auckland Co-Design Lab, Kelly, Lee, Penny, Angie and Eruini, put your hands up. And we also have Jackie Chan, who have joined us, Practice Foundation team, and will be doing the illustrations for our 2026 series. Jackie will share the start of her illustrations at the end of our session, and the full illustration will be shared online in 2 weeks' time. Rereata kia tātou mā tēnā tātou, e raro mai. The purpose of our Practice Foundations is to provide a space for those working in the public sector who are working in complex environments to come together with other like-minded people. So we would like to acknowledge that this is a difficult time for many, and that we would like to encourage and support everyone to take good care of themselves and the session is and we hope that today's session is restorative. Kelly is here in the background for any questions that may pop up, any issues or concerns. Feel free to reach out to her at any time. We also just want to let you know that we won't be allowing any bots like Read AI to attend these sessions. This is in order to keep this place safe for people to connect. If you're unable to attend, most of our sessions are recorded and can be watched online. The purpose or the rhythm of today's session is based on Te Whakariterite, preparing ourselves for each other for the journey. The session is focused on Te Whakariterite, a foundational phase of Hautū Waka, an Indigenous navigational methodology grounded in mātauranga Māori and shared by renowned tohunga, kaumātua of Te Whakariterite, may I say, Rereata Makiha. Hautū Waka has been a pivotal part of Auckland Co-Design Lab's mahi, supporting public sector teams to tackle complex challenges over the past 5 years. In this session, the lab will share what Te Whakariterite looks like in practice, what it helps teams to do, and the tools and practices that support us to prepare work together in complex change. So, together, during this 90-minute session, we will have our whakawhanaunga with small breakout groups, hear from the lab team, and then go back into breakout groups for some reflection time, and then come back again together as a whole group wānanga. So, we have our two kōrero for today. They're not new to our kaupapa of Practice Foundations. However, we have Angie Tangaere, ko hikurangi te maunga, ko waiapu te awa, ko Ngāti Porou Tewi, ko nuku tere te waka, ko o te tairawhiti i te taha o tōna pāpā, he Pākehā noki ia ki te taha o tōna mama. Angie was born and raised in South Auckland. She's happiest hanging out with her sons. Angie is currently the tohu tangata whenua at Co-Design Lab. We also have Eruini Hawke. As a member of the Auckland Co-Design Lab, he has a strong foundation in te ao Māori, inclusive of te reo Māori me ona tikanga, Kōrero tiku iho me te mātauranga a iwi. His inherent connection to te taiao is what drives him, and he ensures that his work is always guided and informed by teachings of his tupuna. He is also deeply committed to the service of his people and has worked closely with his own iwi and communities. A true child of te ane mahuta, he is happiest when his hands are in the soil. Eruini is proud father of 3 and has iwi affiliations to Ngāti Whātua, Ngāti Mahuta, Ngāti Ranginui, Ngāti Awa, Ngāti Pikiao, and Ngāti Maniapoto. Nō reira, ka tukunoi te rākau kōrero anō ki a koe, Eruini, mai tā tātou wāhanga whakawhanaunga. Tēnā koe e kara.
Tēnā koe riri. Ka mihi atu au ki a koe me o mahi, me te o reo whakatuwhera tō reo mihi ki a tātou I tēnei ata. Good morning, everybody. Kia ora. Ai, ko Eruini ahau. And we'll kick straight into our whakawhanaungatanga exercise this morning. Ne? So the image in front of you is a prompt to get you to think about a way we would like you to think about introducing yourselves to your fellow viewers in your breakout groups. So this exercise, we would like you to think about a person or an ancestor or a relative whose qualities live in you today. And in no particular order. Also think about a place, a landmass, a body of water or a community that shaped who you are today. And then also think about something you hope your descendants or future kin might inherit from you. You can pick one, you can pick all 3, you can pick 2, kei a koe te tikanga. The idea is to look within and identify some of those qualities, those places, and some of the things that you would like your mokopuna, your tamariki to inherit from you. And tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe, Jessica Trask, nau tēnei whakawhanaungatanga I tākoha mai ki roto I a tātou o te lab. Ai, koina ngā mahi mo tēnei wā. Ka pai? Nau mai haere mai, rauru mai ki Hautū Waka. I tēnei wā ka huri atu mātou ki tēnei kōrero, te kaitiakitanga o te Hautū Waka. So upholding the mana of Hautū Waka. We are committed to protecting its integrity and exploring the application and practices of Hautū Waka. We ask that you commit to the upholding of ngā mana whenua, ngā mana mātauranga, ngā mana tangata, me ngā mana kaupapa. Within tēnei pau o mana whenua, honouring our relationships and responsibilities to whenua and those that uphold the role of mana whenua. Within the pau of mana mātauranga, honour and acknowledge Indigenous knowledge and recognise your positionality. Ne? In the pau of mana tangata, uphold the mana of those you work with and serve. In the pau of mana kaupapa, our frameworks are created to support whānau well-being and systems change, rather than personal gain, profit, or commercialisation. Ka tahuri atu mātou ki te whakapapa o Hautū Waka. As Riri mentioned this morning, Hautū Waka is a navigational methodology shared with us by renowned tohunga and kaumātua no te taitokerau, ko matua Rereata Makiha tēnā. First practiced by our tupuna as they navigated their way from Hawaii to Aotearoa. The phases inside of Hautū Waka are found in the Karakia te kune te pupuke, recited by te kohuora of Rongoroa and recorded by missionary Richard Taylor. Hautū Waka provides a powerful language and approach to guide and articulate complex and collective transformation and reform work. And e hara mātou e ware, we would also like to acknowledge Roi Matatani Whapao and Eila Hoeta for their mahi and their contributions to Hautū Waka. Tēnei te mihi atu ki a kaurua I tēnei ata. So Hautū Waka as a whole has 6 different phases. I will quickly share what those phases are this morning. Our primary focus in today's Practice Foundation sessions will be Whakariterite. So the first phase in Hautū Waka is Whakariterite, the preparation of the crew. The second phase in Hautū Waka is Te Rapunga, venturing into the unknown. The third phase in Hautū Waka is Te Kitinga, sighting tohu to project you forward. The fourth phase is Te Whainga, a phase where you're digging deeper, researching, exploring tohu. The fifth phase is Te Whiwhinga, where you can take a closer look at tohu. And Te Rawinga is in sight, and a lot of work still has to be done. Finally, the last phase within Hautū Waka is Te Rawinga, where we celebrate, we reflect, and we acknowledge tohu, ne? Ka pai. So moving on into our kaupapa matua mo tēnei rā, the main topic of discussion for Practice Foundations today is Whakariterite. Ka pai. So, Whakariterite is the preparation phase before movement. It's about ensuring everyone understands the kaupapa, their role, how they will work together, so that when we move with unity, we move with clarity. Ancient Pacific navigators understood that the success of the voyage was determined long before the waka ever touched the open ocean. Ancient navigators understood the quality of preparation determines the quality of navigation. So, imagine yourself sitting in a waka on the shoreline before a long ocean journey. You don't just start paddling or casting the sails, do you? No, you prepare. Ancient Pacific navigators carefully observed environmental signs to determine the right time for departure. The position and rising points of stars, seasonal wind patterns, ocean swells and currents, bird migrations and behavior, cloud formations indicating land presence, and lunar phases. They did not fight the environment, they aligned with it, because nature couldn't be controlled. It could only be understood and worked with. So in Whakariterite, some of the things that you would consider in preparation for your journey is to check the waka. Is it sound? Is it ready? Do you have all the resources required? You ensure each paddler or sailor knows their seat, knows their role. You listen to the steerer and you align on direction. You build trust with the crew. You feel the rhythm together before entering into the water. You commit to the same destination. Whakariterite is not a delay. It is what makes the journey possible. When Whakariterite is done right, it ensures that when movement happens, it happens in alignment with people and with place. Whakariterite was the deliberate phase of preparation, aligning knowledge, people, environment, and wairua, so that the journey could unfold safely and with purpose. And in the time of our ancestors, Whakariterite wasn't just a simple logistical preparation. It was a process of bringing everything into balance before departure. Now, in the public sector, within those systems, it's often like an ocean voyage. It's complex, it's unpredictable, and it's held by a collective. Hautū Waka emphasizes working alongside whānau, communities, and across agencies to address complex social challenges requiring alignment, shared understanding, and collective capability. So I'd just quickly like to share, I've had the privilege of being an active member of Waka Taua for many years. I've journeyed on Mahuhu ki te rangi, Takitimu Waka, Mātauranga Waka, and most recently Te Kawau. These waka they have different captains, they have different crews, they have different support boats, they have different land teams. But one of the common themes I noticed across all these waka during my time with them was the whakariterite process. Each waka had their own process, and they all had a different approach to the journey, which makes a lot of sense, ne? Ka tahuri atu au I tēnei wā ki a koe, Angie.
Tēnā koe, Eruini, Māori ora ki te whare. Kia ora, everybody. So nice to be online with you all this morning. Just before I start, I want to acknowledge there are many practitioners online today. So I just want to acknowledge the expertise and the experience that we have in our virtual room today. So ngā mihi kia koutou katoa. Eruini shared that beautiful mātauranga about whakariterite, and what I'd like to share with you today is how that deep mātauranga has helped inform principles and practices that we're using here at the lab in our complexity and system change work. So I'll start by talking to some of the principles, and then I'll share some of the practices with you all, and I'm sure you all have many of your own principles and practices to navigate what is at times some very challenging work. So yeah, if we start with the first principle, thanks Eruini. As Eruini was describing, I think about our complexity and system change work, and I think about how if you're doing this work well, you're quite often agitating change, and it can feel really challenging and it can feel really difficult. And so beginning well really matters. The way that we are preparing ourselves as individuals to be in the work, the way that we're preparing our relationships as we're together on the journey of doing this work, really, really matters. And it's, for us, the learning has been about the practices to prepare yourself to be well and regulated in the work, and the relationships to be robust and resilient in the work, rather than just figuring out how you project manage your way through parts of the work. So this preparation about how we are preparing each other, ourselves, in a relational way is just as important as being able to understand the rhythm of the work, the phasing of the work, as you're moving through that work together. We can go on to the next one. Thanks, Eruini. And for us, that's learning about becoming a cohesive crew in this work. And one of the most critical success factors in my mind when you're doing this type of work and complexity is the strength of the relationships you have with each other as you're doing the work, because often it surfaces tensions, not just with people you're working alongside, but it surfaces tensions within the team itself. So, and I'll talk to some practices, we've used some today actually this morning, but the importance of connecting with who you are working alongside and how you are collectively connecting in terms of the kaupapa that you're carrying as you do the work's really, really critical. And the third point is you don't want to launch a waka with only a couple of people knowing how to sail or have been on journeys before. You need a critical mass of people who have some experience. But what we're also learning is it's really, really important to be attuned to what the emerging capabilities are that are required on that haerenga. And Eruini just was speaking to the different haerenga and having different crew on some of the waka, going to different places, possibly having different rangatira on the waka. And this is important in helping us to understand that often when we're working in complexity, we can't be relying on the same skill sets and the same capabilities that we've had in the past. we're needing to attune to what is surfacing, what the need is, what do we need to be learning about, and what new capabilities do we need to be building as we're doing this work. And for me, this is about transdiscipline. I know people talk about multidiscipline, but for me, this is about transdiscipline, where we're often taking a capability or a skill, and we're learning or understanding that we're needing to evolve that, or we're needing to build onto that as new challenges or new needs arise as you're doing the work together. And then lastly, we've been considering how Te Whakariterite can help us to think about recalibrating and resetting rather than starting again. We talk a lot in our team about there's a Hautū Waka inside of the Hautū Waka. There's many Hautū Wakas in the long journey of system change that we're facilitating. And so I've been personally reflecting on the fact that at the moment, here in Aotearoa and across the globe, it feels like we're coming back to conversations, we're coming back to the same problems and the same challenges that we've been trying to address for a very long time. And that can seem frustrating. But if we think about whakariterite, it's a time to be still and reset and recalibrate and think about what can we bring into this challenge, this conversation that we didn't have before, and what can we leave behind given what we've learned and having these conversations and trying to address these challenges. Often it can feel like, I will just say, in some of the work that we're involved with, often it can feel like we're not making much progress, and that can be frustrating. But if we think about coming back and just giving ourselves the space and the time to be able to think about how we reset. Thanks, Eruini. We can go on to the next slide. I thought we'd just share some practices, some tools and practices that we use as a team. And I know many of you will have lots of different tools and practices in the work that you're doing. The first is that we find it to be really useful to be clear about the tikanga that you're carrying into the work that you're going to do together. So the expectations about how am I showing up and behaving in the work, and how we're being in the work together in relationship. So the values and principles that we're agreeing will hold us in good stead, will support our relationship as we're doing the work, and the tūkanga in terms of what are the processes or the protocols that we will ensure that those principles and values are being lived in the way that we're doing the work together. And some of those things may be non-negotiables for you and your team. So just being really explicit about what's required in agreeing that the values, principles, and the processes that you'll carry forward as a team. Thanks, Eruini. The second is that the often difficult and complex nature of the work means there are tensions to navigate, and therefore relationships need to be continually strengthened as you're doing the work together. So you might do some really good work up front here in whakariterite, but you need to be thinking about, we need to be thinking about how you are embedding practices and processes that continue to build and strengthen relationships as you're going through the work together. And one of the practices we use to make sure we're attuning to how each of us are feeling in the work and checking on the well-being of our team is to use the Māori meter. And Riri was just using that this morning. But what we've learned is these things need to be built in consistently to ensure that you have strong and resilient relationships as you're doing this work together. Thanks, Eruini. This is a little bit related to the tūkanga conversation. But it's being really clear as a team about what are the ways that we're working together, what are the expectations about how we work together, and we've been thinking about particularly what it looks like to reconcile in the work. So if you're really pushing the boundaries in your mahi, and in my mind that's what system change is about, then there will be times when you there are tensions and there are differing views on how the work needs to be done. And so building in explicit processes and spaces to reconcile means that there can be, as Jess would say, rupture and repair as you're doing the work, and it doesn't, and if there's disagreements or tension, it doesn't stop the work. So the kaupapa can continue. So we've been thinking about what do those processes around reconciliation and healing look like. And one really important practice for me and our team is that we're really clear that our roles and our practices as tangata whenua and tangata tiriti are just as important in terms of the way that we're doing the work as the work that we're doing together. And for me, that's a really beautiful way of reconciling the history of Aotearoa and the way that we're doing the work together. Thanks, Eruini. And the last thing I just wanted to chat about is what I was talking to in the previous slide, which is how do you attune to understand what are the new types of capabilities that we need as we're doing this work together, and what do we need to evolve, and what other disciplines or resources can we draw on to address whatever is surfacing in the work that you're doing together. And for us, that's been a reflective process which is supported by Niho Taniwha as a learning system. And so it's been really important for us to stop and reflect often about what are we seeing in the work, what are we feeling in the work, what's surfacing as new, or what's surfacing that requires attention and perhaps a way of us thinking differently about how we do the work together. That's my kōrero for that. Just before we leave before we go into a little kōrero, I just wanted to let you all know that we are developing a toolkit that will consolidate the practices and the disciplines that we've been drawing on to do this work. We're drawing on lots of different spaces to understand how we build the capability to do this work. We're drawing on mātauranga Māori, we're drawing on trauma-informed, we're drawing on system change. So all of those different disciplines and different practices, we're bringing those together and understanding how they are useful in the way that we do this system change work. So that will be hopefully available a little bit later on in the year. Now I think we are going into a little bit of a breakout session. This question is kind of geared around what I was talking about in terms of thinking about whakaritirite as an opportunity to reset and recalibrate, even around things that we feel like we might be revisiting or we've been trying to address for a long time. So what we'd like you to think about as you go into and have a kōrero about, as you go into your breakout rooms, is think of a challenge or an opportunity within your mahi that you think could benefit from a return to whakaritirite. And thinking about whakaritirite as a time to reset and recalibrate. Given what you now know, what would you do differently? And what would you leave behind now that you're taking this opportunity to reset and recalibrate? I'm sure the team will drop all those kupu into the chat for you. So Lee's going to do her magic and put us into breakout groups very shortly.
My hoki mai. Welcome back. Here's hoping everyone got to share a bit of kōrero in the breakout groups. We'll just wait around for everyone else to jump back in. In the meantime, if we can take a few minutes to drop any thoughts, reflections, pātai into the chat forum, chat from our breakout sessions, and share it so everyone can see. Again, no doubt there was some beautiful kōrero shared, or insights, learnings about using Hautū Waka. Thinking of ways to change the motu, especially in public health. Kia ora rā, Paula. You just said what I'm thinking. Leave people's egos behind. Kia ora. Kia ora. Ka pai, some good kōrero. Some gems. Ka pai, Robbie. Robbie, I was thinking maybe you can talk more to that kōrero about the preparation of the relationships and practices to support relationships. I might pick on you.
Well, first time here, get picked on.
Oh, kia ora.
Apparently, I've got that kind of face for that thing. Oh, kia ora koutou. Ko Robbie tēnā, he tangata moana, he tangata titi, kei o te tahi, e noho ana, kei te tauranga ao Aotearoa, e mahi ana, mahi tonu ana. Yeah, so work at Stats NZ. And so just the brief context is a lot of social change in the mahi that you're doing and learning. I go, it's the same when we're trying to do stuff internally at Stats NZ, because it's at the end of the day, it's just people doing stuff. So yeah, one of the things that stood out for me was just, especially in Angie's kōrero, just that real emphasis on, when we think of preparation, I know in my context, it's like, what's your plan? Give me your stakeholder plan. What's your deliverables? What are your outcomes? Give me your milestones. Where's your critical path? And that's what preparation looks like. And that's good mahi. But really listening and hearing Angie going, actually the preparation is investing in what is the relational stuff, or I would say, what's the space between us, and is that where it needs to be? And also like the explicit prep looks like what are the things that we're writing down? What's my boss going to see? What are we all going to see? Is like the practices that will support the relationships is actually the mahi that we're doing, not necessarily what we're going to do. I go, we're going to do some stuff together because that's why we're all here. But the things that we're figuring out are how we're going to sustain our relationships, and especially that piece around reconciliation and healing. And partly that stands out because it's just so not something that would normally be done. And so I always look for those things that, okay, we'll make sure that happens, because otherwise it doesn't fit in the normal way. So let's bake that in. But yeah. Ana i tahi whakaaro. Kia ora.
Kia ora rā, tēnā koe, Robbie. Massive. Would anyone else like to share some kōrero? I'll leave it up for mātauranga kohihiko, maybe. But if not, there's this one here from Debbie, talking about preconceived ideas about what the outcome should look like, old ways of doing. Trust we can create greater outcomes, make people feel safe, and that. Would you like to talk to us more about?
Thanks, Riri. Yeah, our group were talking about what we can leave behind, I suppose, and some of those things about agencies needing to let go of their agency hat and their kind of, when you're in a collective, it's a very hard and challenging thing for agencies that come together to do mahi together to let go of kind of their own little circle of what they're in, what the outcomes are that they're wanting, how they do things. So sometimes we just need to work with the willing, is what was shared in our rōpū, and leaving behind preconceived ideas about what those outcomes might look like as well. So and leaving people's egos behind was a really good whakaaro as well. It's very hard to get past people's, they're in the mahi, we get paid for that mahi, I guess. They have a role to play. But actually, what is needed for our whānau, for our rangatahi out there? And sometimes you've got to let go of some of that stuff. And I think the more flexible agencies can be is probably the better for our whānau, actually. But that's just my fear.
Can I add to that, Riri?
You can.
Kia ora. It seems crazy that we just keep doing things that we know don't work. And so what you're describing there, Deb, is it's really important. But one of the things we're learning, and I just want to acknowledge we do work in quite unique circumstances, is that people keep doing what we know doesn't work because that's all they know. And so how do you build enough trust in a collective to be able to identify an alternative, and then there's enough trust in the group that you do that. You go a little bit out on the limb, and then sometimes what's worked is that we've had to take that risk on behalf of a learning partner. So the learning partner is empowering you enough to do something differently, but the risk is shared, if that makes some sense. But I think that's so true, and I think that's the power of whakaritirite, is to go like, what should we not do? What should we leave because it isn't working? But as you described, Deb, there's lots of reasons why people bring through what they know doesn't seem to be impactful. But that's something we've been trying to work on, is how do you build the trust? For us, that's convening in a learning environment, build a trust together to do something, so we can stop doing that and start doing something else.
Kia ora, tēnā koe, Angie. I like this one here of Amber Smith, talking about the complexities of holding space and prioritizing relationships. Amber, if you would like to share more, Amber?
Yeah, kia ora. Thank you. So, yeah, we had a really interesting conversation. Just that, really talking about often how there's duality, like people can't see the duality. You're either a relationship person or you're a project person, and really without the relationships, you're not going to really achieve meaningful or sustainable work, and you need to embed that all the way through the mahi. And in our group so I work for Te Whatuora Health New Zealand. We had someone from Auckland Council and also the Ministry for Women. So we had a good kind of cross section, and it was really interesting what the parallels and similarities were. We talked a lot about behaviour too, in terms of conflict avoidance, and then people who purposely try and stir the pot, and how that's has some benefits, but is ultimately kind of mana diminishing and undermines the value. But I would be really keen to hear similarly, I think, to what Paula said too, without going too much into the psychology, but holding the space for both. I think it takes courage and it takes connection, and I see some of my colleagues on the call today, so they know a little bit about that too, and we support each other. Well, they certainly support me, so kia ora.
Tēnā koe. Thank you for being brave and being able to share those kōrero, those complexities. Beautiful. Angie, have you got anything to add to what's been heard?
Amber, can you just say a little bit more about what you would like to hear?
Oh, yes. Yep, certainly. Sorry, I probably garbled that a bit. I'm just reading my comment to make sure I'm sticking to what I said. Just if anyone else has got experiences or reflections of how to create those spaces, because I think what we're really good about doing, particularly in the public sector, is not being safe, but kind of working around things all the time. And when you're wanting to create change and you're wanting to tackle really embedded systemic problems like inequities and institutional racism and things like that, you've got to go through it to a degree in a safe way. You can't just keep going around stuff. Like, you can't go straight to the heart of the problem every day, all day. But what's the middle ground, and or what are strategies people have for having those kind of conversations in a way that is constructive and safe?
I can share a little bit about what we've been utilising and experiencing, and I'm sure there's others on the line that have other valuable experience here. But the tikanga and tūkanga are really important, I think, for naming that you're prepared there's going to be tension, but this is the way we're going to conduct ourselves and in relationship to each other. These are the values and principles. But you should be anticipating that there will be hard conversations to be had if you are serious about system change or innovation even inside of an organisation. So what we've tried to do is try to build those tikanga and tūkanga with the view that there will be a rupture and repair at some stage. The other thing that we're thinking about is sometimes we're avoiding having hard conversations because we don't have the relational currency to have a conversation that might induce a conflict. So we're trying to figure out, how do you build enough individual capability and relational capability to stay in the conversation instead of just backing out of it because it's too hard, and then those conversations can't be had. And so for I know for many of us on the line, some of those are quite deep conversations. What does it feel like to be tangata whenua in this organisation doing this work? What does it feel like to be tangata tiriti and learning together? And some of that goes to the heart of, who we are and how we're doing the work. But those are a couple of ways we've been thinking about. But build, anticipate for hard conversations and conflict, and think about how you're building enough relational capability to stay in the conversation long enough to have it. But I'm sure others have many other great practices and experiences to draw on.
Yeah, ka pai tēnā koe, Ange. Is there anyone else that would like to ask any pātai of Angie and Eruini?
Got a pātai from Paula, Riri.
Kia ora, Paula. And there's always power. Paula, would you like to ask the pātai?
Tēnā rawa te koutou. I just wanted to speak to sometimes the systemic issues that I'm hearing, that i ngā wā o mua, all of the decisions that were made by our ariki were made with the collective in mind, and with the generation e whaiake nei, that our generations that were coming forward. And so what I'm hearing is that some of the issues that sometimes we feel like we're experiencing is because a lot of those decisions are made top down, not necessarily with the collective in mind and the well-being in mind of the kaimahi who are, for example, at the coalface. So I think that needs to change. We want to embrace this wonderful kaupapa Māori framework and mindset, but we're still stuck in a very, very patriarchal, if I must say so myself, sorry to the fellas in the room, but a very patriarchal and a colonized mindset. And until we actually start to change, and we all turn up here because of that, because we have a social mindset, we have a collective mindset, and until we accept that this is a thing, some of those changes and some of those, the systems where they're very, very embedded, where the patriarchy is very, very embedded, where the systems are very, very embedded, we need systemic change. And it comes from all of us actually coming together as a collective voice. Koinei taku whakaro. Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Paula. I see a lot of love hearts popping out on screen. Has anyone else got anything to share in terms of that kōrero, in terms of the experiences that you face in your organisation, or the complexities? I mean, we don't have the answers to everything. However, that's where mātauranga comes from, yeah? By doing things, and we're understanding and learning the things that are happening in our environment, in our organisations. Anyone else like to share anything? Ka hore?
We've got Jenny who's got her hand up.
Ka pai, Jenny.
Kia ora, can you hear me? Oh, okay. I'm usually talking to myself for the first 2 minutes. I just enjoyed that kōrero. And I think one of the problems is sometimes people don't realise, don't really realise what they're doing, and it's a form, in my experience, not mainly at work, but this is iwi stuff. It's around how people hold power and how they use that power, and often they think that they're having a wānanga, or they think that they are sharing power, but in fact they're not. Some people are very, very used to actually making the decisions for everybody, and they tell themselves that they're being helpful. You know, don't go with a blank slate. Everybody expects you to come with some kōrero. I think they might have started like that, but we've long deviated from that, and actually people are very good at making the choices, you know, at doing the decision making for everybody else. I see that's one of the biggest lessons that people have to learn, is they have to learn to, you throw your ideas in, and we all throw our ideas in, and then together we sift through them, and, you know, we weigh them up. That process often gets missed. But I do think a lot of people that do it, you know, I'm talking about an iwi space, quite entitled, got a particular kind of whakapapa, and so they think, you know, the kaua made the call, so I'll make the call. And it's like, nah, that was 200 years ago. But they really don't realise that they're doing it half the time. And I say that because they continue to do it. And so those are, you know, having to be very courageous conversations, because of course, not only do we have whanaungatanga, but we actually share whakapapa. That's an even closer relationship. So yeah, we do have to become very skilled at how we put our words, how we approach some of these blockages, massive blockages. Yeah, that's just, it made me think of that when I was listening to the last kōrero. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe, Jenny. Mihi ana ki o kōrero, and resonate really well with those kōrero. So tēnā koe. Anyone else would like to add any thoughts? Trying to scroll through all the screens to see if I can see hands up. Ka hore e pai ana. Ka pai. Angie, anything?
Just kia kaha koutou, doing a good job wherever you are. And as we've shared, we just got to collectivise. You know, systems are just bunches of people making decisions, and here's a lot of nice, good people on the kaupapa making decisions. So if we just keep collectivising and supporting each other, that will be a great outcome. Kia ora.
Kia ora, tēnā koe. Eruini, he kōrero wahau?
Yeah, tēnā tātou. Just like to share some final thoughts. Let me just throw up an image. Okay, so ka mihi atu au ki ngā kōrero kua kōrero. Whakariterite, te rapunga, te kitenga, te whāinga, te whiwhinga, and te rawenga. They're not linear steps there that you complete and just leave behind. And we've purposely designed this slide to not be a straight line. to try and express that whakaaro. So each of these phases are relational states of navigation that exist within each other and alongside each other. A lot like the elements within ocean voyaging itself. So each phase contains the others within it. Now stay with me, Net. Even while you're in te rapunga, when you're searching through the unknown, you're still practicing whakariterite. You're still continually aligning yourself to the kaupapa, strengthening relationship, ensuring readiness as new conditions might emerge. As new insights arise in te kitinga when you're discovering tohu, you may realise that further seeking is needed so you can return back to te rapunga. So this movement back and forth is a natural thing. It's a necessary thing because understanding can deepen over time, because not everything just appears all at once. So moving into new phases doesn't mean that the previous phase is complete. Instead, each phase becomes like a foundation you continue to stand on and return to. So this kind of reflects the reality of waka navigation. The navigator is always preparing, they're always in whakariterite, always seeking and reading the environment, they're always in te rapunga. And they're not separate activities, they're interconnected dimensions of one continuous act of navigation. So understanding Hautū Waka in this way allows us to work with greater awareness, greater responsiveness. It can help to remove the pressure to complete the phases and instead encourages ongoing alignment, ongoing reflection and adjustment. It also recognises how much navigation isn't just a straight line, but it's a living process where preparation, seeking, discovery, aiming and fulfillment are always present, and they're always informing each other. And they're always available to return to maintain balance and integrity within the journey.
Tēnā koe, Eruini, tēnā kaurua. Kamatu, kei te pai o maharanga kōrero iriana, kei nuku tawhiti te whakaaro, nuku tawhiti ngā mahi, e kore memiti te puna mihi kia kaurua tahi Eruini, e Angie. Haere ka roa ka ki te pēr ko ngā hua a tēnā e whakarongo maina. Looking forward to the toolkits that draws on the mahi, that encompasses all the strengths of our mahi. But I also wanted to say a special thank you to everyone who shared whakaaro on the chat. It helps to deepen our learnings and our complexities, our positive outcomes and experiences amongst each other. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who were bold in adding some kōrero here and there, and then speaking to the rest of us. So thank you, Mihana. That's not the last. Here's hoping that everyone that's here today comes back next month to our kaupapa. So and a special mention also to Jackie, who's completed an illustration that will be posted for today's in 2 weeks time for you all to download and use and share. It will also be included in the invite for next month's session. So I'm going to invite Jackie to share a long look and leisurely gaze of her illustration.
Woohoo! It's in progress.
Yeah, in progress. And so that's what you're seeing now. And another 2 weeks is going to be completed. Beautiful, Jackie. Mehena ki a koe me o ringa tā pikitia. Tēnei e mehena ki a koe. So please share back on the session what you liked, what you didn't like, what was helpful, what wasn't helpful. Please share that in the chat if you can, pop it in. And just a reminder for the previous session on Hautū Waka from 2022 to 2025 can be found on our lab's website. Our pānui we have is is for the New Practice Foundations. For everyone that was new, if you'd like to receive an email or invites to the next session, please sign up via the Co-Design Lab's website or emailing the lab. Also, I just want you to be a little bit excited if you can, if you may. We are incredibly unfortunate to welcome our legendary Kay Marie Dunn from, again, Te Taitokero, Te Rarawa Ngāpuhi Ngāti Kahu, Ki Whangaroa, and Ngāti Mahanga, Ngāti Ngaita Manuhiri, Ngāti Kahunganu, who'll be in conversation with our very own Sophia's Beaton from Kaitahu, Kati Mamoe, and yeah, so that'll be our session next month. It's going to be a good one, e hoama, so please jump on again next month. Other than that, it's been a beautiful session, and thank you very much for your time this morning. Ka tukuna kia Eruini, kia whakakapi ake ta tātou wāhanga i te rangi nei. Tēnā koe Eruini.
Tēnā tātou. Tīkina atu te Māori hihiri, tīkina atu te Māori hihiko, ko te Māori I tuhua mai ai, he pūkenga, he kōrero, he wānanga, ko ia te tākere o te waka nui, ko ia te tākere o te waka ingo. Tēnei waka kua tere ki tai, tēnei waka kua pai ki uta, ko te ue pū ka tū, ko te ue pū ka tau, tēnei te ue pū ka whakamaua kia teina, teina, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e.